students, once again I welcome all of you in our this session. So in our last sessions we have already discussed about the chapter that is a physical and chemical change, and we have nearly about to be complete this chapter. In this lesson or in this session we will just complete this chapter. So basically we have studied in this chapter physical and chemical changes on the basis of several criteria. We have just seen what are the criteria we can be used to understand or to decide whether it is a physical change or whether it is a chemical change. Just for your revision, we will just see some points, like whether it is a physical change. It can be a reversible change. The new substance will not form, and it doesn't require any form of energy in the, like heat and light energy, and it is a temporary change. But once you seen a chemical change, it is required some energy, it is permanent change, and the new substance will form at the end, that is called product. And the product which is or the new substance will having a totally different characteristics as compared to the reactant substance. And several things are going to be used, and in our previous lecture we have seen several points, that is on the basis of that we can decide whether it is a chemical change or not. So we have seen like change in the color, like we have seen the fruit when it is ripening, it is example of chemical change. So definitely it will just going to be change of color in the color. Once you burn a paper, it is totally different in color, the ash is different from the paper. So that is a number one characteristics you just understand, that is it is changing into the color. The second, evolution of gas. Whenever there is a chemical reaction will happen, there will be the evolution of gas will happen. So that is why when the gas is removing from the reaction, this is also one of the clue which going to be explained, that is it's a chemical reaction will happen here. And the third point, that release and absorb of energy in the form of heat, light or sound. Whenever the reaction is going to be happen, that is a chemical reaction, so this kind of the energy either will be released or will be absorbed in the form of heat, light and sound. So these are three basic points we will just understand, and we can be understand or compare any reaction or any change on this criteria, and we are having a result, that is it is a chemical reaction or not, right? And then we have seen an examples also. Then if you are putting a quick lime into the water, it is just dissolving to that water and going to be release energy, heat energy, and the water is going to become hotter. So that is because the new thing will be happen, energy is releasing. So that is why it is going to become come under under the category of chemical change. Also we have seen the example of sugar. When it is burning it here, when we are burning the sugar, it is going to be converted into the black color. So the new substance will be formed. Before it is a white color sugar, then after giving heat it is going to be converted into the blackish color. So it is also the new substance has formed, and the property is totally different, taste is totally different, and the color is totally different. It is a non-reversible reaction, and heat energy is just absorbed into this reaction. So many things, and gas is released in the form of carbon dioxide. So on the basis of this criteria we just easily say that this is a chemical reaction, right? So some characteristics we have already discussed here, and permanent change is there, non-reversible, new substance will form, composition is totally different from parents, an exchange of gases or exchange of energy in the form of heat, light or sound. So that is a criteria to decide whether it is a chemical change or not. And in our last lecture we have also discussed about that few points, like differences in the form of heat energy. Whenever we have already said that if the chemical reaction will happen, it is required energy. So it is required energy in a different form, like sometime it is required heat energy, sometime it is required light energy. So heat energy means whenever we are cooking the food, we are using the heat energy. Without heat energy we cannot cook our food, or we cannot uh, burn the paper, and so many whatever the reactions will happen, it is required heat energy. Some reactions will be happen with the help of light energy, like photosynthesis is the best example. and photo means photo, during this photo means light, so we have seen photosynthesis. So this the food will synthesize uh, in the plant leaves, that is a must requirement of sunlight. If there is not presence of sunlight, the reaction will be not happen. That is why here the light is the source of energy. So for different reaction, different kind of the energy sources are going to be used. And in the third example, electricity, once you are decompose the water, once you are just dividing the water molecules, which is consisting the elements of hydrogen and oxygen. So to just decompose the water into hydrogen and oxygen, either it is also required electricity, and electricity is also a form of energy. So depending on the different reaction, we are just using a different kind of sources of energy, and we are just doing this reaction. And one more example we have seen, that is simply into the hydrochloric acid we are adding zinc granules. So zinc granules is going to be react with hydrogen or hydrochloric acid. Here the reactant is hydrochloric acid and zinc granules, and what will happen, that it will give you some sound, which is bubbles coming out with sound. So that is indicating that evolution of gas is there. So once the gas is evoluting, this is also the example for the chemical reaction. So here the gas will remove, and first of all thing, the gas is removing here. The second thing, the it is once you touch the test tube, it will becoming hot. So the heat energy is also releasing here, that is why it is becoming hot, and this indicates that the some heat energy has been released during this reaction. So and the third one, that is once you bring the matchstick near the mouth of the test tube, it will give you a pop-up sound, because it is means just confirm that it is a hydrogen gas is releasing. So many things we can be understand, the gas is releasing, the heat energy is releasing. So that is a all will just show that this reaction will going to come under the chemical reaction, or it is a chemical change, and it cannot be a reversible. That is why it will it is said to be, that is it is a chemical reaction. So with the help of this activity, we will understand that is how it is going to become under the chemical reaction. Then in our last slide, we have just started importance of chemical reaction, why there is a need of chemical reaction. If the chemical reaction will happen, what are the advantages will be there, right? So must be, it is a very important thing, because various types of chemical change from place to place already we are just observing. Some are natural while some are man made, and most of them are very useful to us, and some are listed below, right? Most of the because the changes are going to be happen around us, right? No doubt, some are man made, some are natural, some are desirable, some are undesirable, as we have said before also. So what are the desirable changes that is good for us, and we are just trying to do that, and we will just discuss the desirable changes, as this is one of the category also we have seen before. We have just categorized on the basis of desirable changes and non desirable changes in our previous lecture. So here we will see, if you are taking the example of raw grains, right? So when we are taking the raw grains, it is cannot be eaten, we cannot eat the raw grains like this, like rice or any grains. So whenever we are just eating it, when we are just providing the heat, it is just change chemically on cooking the and becoming edible. Edible means now we can be eat it, right? So it is going to be make it comfortable. Once we just heat it, it is becoming soft, it is becoming means good for digestion, we can be easily digest the food. If you are just eating a raw rice, it's very hard, you cannot eat it, and definitely you are having some stomach pain. So once you are just giving a heat and you are just making or just cooking the rice, it is also a chemical change, because permanently it is changing into a new product, and it cannot be come back to the normal raw material. So that is why it is a chemical reaction, but that is desirable, right? This is our desire. If you are cooking the food, it is good for us, right? So that is means it is a useful changes, we can also say. Second useful change, we will say soap, detergents, paints, fertilizers, medicines, etc. all are produced due to the chemical change. right? If you take the example of fertilizers, or you can take the example of medicine, so how it will produce before, or if you are taking the example of soap, before it is just oil and some other raw materials are there. So while we are just processing these ingredients or these raw materials into the industry, it will give you soap, it will give you detergent, it will give you paint, because it is also a chemical. Fertilizers we are making in industry, so that is, or the medicine, etc. These all are useful. We are using the soap, detergent, these are day to day life products are there. Fertilizers we are using to increase the fertility of our soil. So these are some useful things, and it is also going to be made by the result of chemical reaction only. So these are some advantages we are just listing here. Number third point, many useful metals like iron, aluminium, copper, etc. are extracted from their combined state by various chemical processes. Like in day to day life, we are just using iron, things of articles of iron, or some other metal like aluminium, copper. So it's not in a pure form before, it is just with the combined state with some other various chemical other things. So just we have to be remove it, or we have to, we can say, purified it in the industries. So from the raw material, from the ores of the rocks, we will just separate all the metals. So that is also going to be possible by the process of chemical reaction only. So separation of this all the metals from its combined form, that is also possible because of chemical reactions or chemical processes. So that is also one of the you can say advantage for us, and this is also result of chemical reaction, right? Number 4 point, burning of fuel is an important chemical change, because it produces a lot of heat energy which is used for domestic and industrial processes. Like, and everybody know the burning of fuel is a very very important process. So many useful things we are doing with by burning the fuel. We are using into the vehicles, we are just using in our for cooking the food, and so many things we are doing after burning the chemicals or burning a fuel. So that is also a chemical reaction, because as we have said already, once you burn something, it is just going to be react with oxygen that is present in the air, and with by reacting with the oxygen, it is making the oxides, and that is why it is a chemical reaction. It is producing something new thing, oxides it is producing before it is not there, and it is releasing the energy in the form of heat and light, and that is our desirable thing. We need we need heat energy, we need light energy, that is remove or release by the end of this chemical reaction. So this is going to be a chemical change, that is a desirable chemical change. We need to burn the fuels because we need energy from it, whichever kind of the fuels we will take. We will take the example of fuel of wood, or coal, or some petrol and diesel. So many fuels examples are there. So whatever the fuels are there, it's just going into the chemical reaction with oxygen, it is just releasing the energy. So that is also a chemical change. Okay, next point, we will just see a different life processes taking place in a plant and animal are all chemical changes which is help to sustain life. Like, what is mean by life processes? The processes or the systems which are running in our body, which are happening in our body, which is very necessary or important to be alive for the plant or animal both. So in the plant and animal, so many processes, that is called a life processes. Without that processes, we cannot imagine the life. Like I am breathing, like we are just digesting the food. So respiration and digestion, and so many examples are there, that is come under the life processes, and that is also a chemical change. So let's see why it is called a chemical change. If you take the example of digestion of food, once you eat the food, it will just going to be digest. So what will happen into the digestion of the food? Why it is called, it is a chemical change? Because in the digestion, what will happen, a digestion of the food is a process which makes our food simple by the action of enzymes to be absorbed in our body, right? So here it is a chemical process, because before we are eating a food, then it is just going to be a change into a simple substances that is absorbable form of our in our body, and it is happening, or it is possible because of the food will going to be react with enzymes. So many digestive enzymes are releasing in our body, in our digestive system. So the food is reacting with enzymes and it is just changing into a new substance. That is why it is a chemical process or chemical change. It is giving you heat, it is giving you energy, and the whole the food will just going to be changed some new product. So that is why. And the respiration, why it is going to become under the chemical process, because respiration is a chemical process. It takes place in all the living beings, and in this process oxygen present in air inhaled by the living beings and reacts with the digested food to release the energy, and carbon dioxide and water, right. So what is actually happening into the respiration, we are just taking breathe in air inside our body, and our alveoli is just absorbing the oxygen from the air, and that oxygen is necessary to burn the food, and that is a part of cellular respiration. Like already we have studied, the food will digest in our digestive system, and it will just with the help of blood it is just carry up to the cell, each and every cell of the body. But it is not a useful form of energy. It needs to be burned with the help of oxygen. So then we breathe, and oxygen is just with the help of blood it is just reached to the cell, and then the cellular respiration will happen. And in the cellular respiration, the energy is released and absorbed in the form of ATP, and that ATP is a, we can say, the currency in our body for energy, and this is actually the form of energy which is going to be utilized by our cell to perform a different functions in our body. So that is also going to be a chemical reaction, because here you can see here in the reactant side, that is a glucose plus oxygen. This is going to be react with each other, and it will give you the carbon dioxide, water and energy. So here the carbon dioxide, water and energy, these are a product of this reaction. So here is also the reactant, and the reaction is going to be happen from left side to right side, and on the right side you will get the carbon dioxide and water and energy, that are the product of this reaction. So, and the new thing is formed, that is the carbon dioxide will form, energy will form, water vapor will form. So these are a new product will form, and it is not a reversible change. That is why it is going to become under a chemical reaction. So like this, so many important and desirable reactions are there, that is going to be happen, and that will become under the category of chemical change. So this change cannot be reversed, right. Once you do the respiration, once you just burn your food by using the oxygen and release the carbon dioxide and energy, you cannot get it back to the normal glucose, and you cannot get back to the substances which is going to be used in this respiration. So that is why in the life processes, the example of digestion, the example of respiration, these are the good example to understand it is a desirable chemical process, right. So in so many things we will just understand, and we can be just compare, and we will, so many things are happening actually around in our around us, but we are not just understanding, we are not observing whether it is a chemical process or not. We can also take the example of just burning of candle. So many times we are burning a candle, but we are not just understanding which kind of the process. So it is a thinking, or you can just think about it, whether I am burning a candle, so whether it is a physical change or chemical change. So many people are very confused in this topic, that whether it is a chemical change or physical change. So actually both the thing will happen into a burning of candle. When we burning a candle, some points we can be say it will come under the physical change, and some point will come under a chemical change. So it is a good example to understand both the changes in one example only. So how we can understand? So when a candle is a little, or it is a wax, right, it's a lead wax, it's melt and turn into a liquid state. Whenever just burning a candle, you will feel some molten wax will just burn and convert into a liquid state. As some of the molten wax drops on a floor or a table where you are keeping the candle, and it's solidified again. So therefore this is a physical change. So when we are just talking about only the wax which is just melt from here and just again solidify here, so that is only a physical change, because it is just changing the state. Whether before it is a solid in the state, once you burn the candle it is just melt and just it is stop over here, and again it will just convert into a solid form. So whenever just talking about wax which is just present and stop here, that is definitely going to become under the physical change. So this is the example, or this part the example of physical change. And which part which can be come under the chemical change, that is simultaneously most of the molten wax rises up the wick and turns into vapor and burns with the flame, right? Whatever the flame you are looking here, so some wax that is burning, right? And after burning it is just giving you a flame of heat and light. So two new substances are formed, water vapor and carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide, easily we can see that the smoke is coming out when the candle is burning, and some water vapor is also releasing here and just absorbing into the air. So whenever just we are just talking about the carbon dioxide is releasing, the water vapor is releasing, that are the new substance, because before it was not there. So the candle becomes smaller and smaller, and this is a chemical change, because not all the wax will just melt and come down, but only the little wax will be just can be observed here, just which is just solidified on the table or on the floor, but other wax will be just burn and just means it is just going to be changed into the carbon dioxide and water vapor, and the carbon dioxide and water vapor is a new substance, that is why it will come under the chemical change. So this part which is just going to be a burn and giving you carbon dioxide and heat and light energy, so that is come under a chemical change. So here just understand the both the process will be happen, physical change will also happen and chemical change will also happen. The part of the molten will just melt and solidify again, it is going to become under physical change, and the part of the molten or wax which just burn and just convert into the carbon dioxide and energy, it will come under chemical change. So that is why it is called the burning of candle as a good example to understand both the things or both the changes are there simultaneously happening. So thus we see that the melting of wax is a physical change, right, and the burning of candle is a chemical change. So whenever we are just talking about melting of wax in this, it's a physical change, because it is only some wax is melt and again solidified, and burning, the wax is burning or the candle is burning, it will come under a chemical change. So just don't be confused, and keep both the points in your mind, why it is called physical change and why it is called chemical change. Lastly, it is given here one paragraph or the difference between a physical change and chemical change, because in the whole chapter it is a very important thing what we are just discussed with all the examples. So here I request all the students just write down all the points in your notebook, because it is going to be a very important points. If you understand these 3-4 points, you will understand whole the process, right? So first we will just discuss about what are the points come under the physical change and what are come under the chemical change. So in a physical change, number 1, change is temporary. As I told you, this is a temporary change which can be going to be backed into the normal stage, right? After releasing whatever the energy you are applying, it can be a comeback, that is called a temporary change. But a chemical change is a permanent change, right? Because we cannot bring it back to the normal. So that is why chemical change is a permanent change. Once it is just changed, it will not going to be back to the return. So that is why it is called a permanent change, right? Number 2nd point, no new substance is formed in the physical change, and there is change only in a physical property, right? New substance is not going to be a form, only the state of the product will be changed, whether it is just changing from solid to liquid, liquid to gas, and only the state of the uh, product will be changed, and there is no change only in a physical property. Physical property will be becoming same, the physical property is only changing, but the chemical properties is going to be same. Properties will not be going to be changed, only the substance from one state to another state will be changed. But when you just talk about a chemical change, new substances are formed definitely with entirely different property. The new substance will form in a chemical change, and the new substance having a uh, different characteristics and different properties. Before it was not there, but once it is made the new substance, it is give you a different properties. That is why it is called a chemical change, and it is a difference from physical and chemical. Third point, we will just see change can be reversed by a simple method. When we are saying the physical change is a temporary change, it can be a reverse. So whilst it can be a reverse by a simple method, you are applying a simple method and you can be get it reversed to the normal state because it is a physical change. Whilst in a chemical change, change cannot be reversed by applying a or by removing the force what we are applied, right? So change cannot be reversed by simple method. You cannot make it back to the normal state by simple method. You have to go to in some other processes, but it is a permanent change and not reversible. Number 4 point, in a physical change, heat or light may or may not be given out or consumed. It's not guaranteed, it's not compulsory. In a physical change, the light or the energy in the form of heat or light will going to be absorbed or going to be released, right? But in a chemical change, heat or light or both are given out or consumed. In a chemical change, there must be a release or there must be absorb of the energy in the form of heat or light. So that is called, it is a chemical change. And number 5th point, the original form of substance can be obtained easily by simple physical method. Whatever the original form of that substance, you can get it back by applying a simple method. By simple method you can be get the original form what we have started from the product. But in a chemical change, the original substance cannot be obtained by a simple method. You cannot be obtain original form of the product by applying a simple method, right? So that is very difficult. Once it is just have the change, you cannot be get back by a simple method to the normal thing. So these are few or the 5 points are there, which is very important. If you just understand and keep this all the points in your mind, you will just have the detail of this chapter. So here our chapter has done. So in this chapter basically we have seen, just revise once again in a short whatever the things we have seen in this chapter. What we have seen that what is physical change, what is chemical change. We have first of all we have just categorized into a different on the basis of different properties, whether it is a permanent change or a temporary change, whether it is a slow change or fast change, whether it is a physical change or chemical change, right? So on the basis of this all we will just clearly understand this chapter. So whatever important points we have discussed in this chapter, just write down on your notebook, and the differences especially write in your notebook and try to learn the differences, because if you are just understanding the differences, the whole the chapter is very easy to understand. And remaining chapter we will start in our next lecture. So up to that, just go through this all the slides, whatever the activities we have discussed in this chapter. Once again just check the activities, because if you are looking at the activities, you will get better understanding. You can be better understand while looking the activities. And this is the chapter of physical and chemical change. We will just we have finished here. So see you in the next lecture with the next topic. Okay, take care.